Hello, my name is Cory King. I am the Executive Director of the Bath Brunswick Regional Chamber, and I'm going to try to spend about 2 minutes each on the 8 ballot questions on the Maine ballot this year. A little bit of background about the ballot this year. There are 8 ballot questions on the ballot. As I said, 4 of them are citizen-initiated referendums, 4 of them are constitutional amendments, and we have to vote on constitutional amendments by Maine voters. That's the law there. So I am hoping in this video to give you both sides of each of these issues so you understand what you're voting on. I will say that our chamber did take a stance on question 3, which I will be transparent about, but I'll try to give you both sides. You're probably going to get my feelings too on how I feel about it. So who am I? Disclaimer, I am the Executive Director of the Bath Brunswick Regional Chamber for about the last 7 years. For about a decade before that, I held the same position in Skowhegan. I live in Durham with my wife and boys. Grew up in Sydney. For those that care, I am an unenrolled voter, which means I am an independent. I'm not a lawyer or a legislator, and I'm speaking to you now just as I would if any of my members called our chamber and said, hey, what do you know about this question? I'll tell you what I know. I can't promise it's perfect, but this is kind of how I'm viewing it and just trying to help get you informed, because if we're being asked to vote on 8 referendum questions, then we should be knowledgeable about what those are. The order of this video, we will take a couple extra minutes on the first question, Pine Tree Power, which is the big one you've heard about. Question 1 and question 2 are tied to question 3, so we're going to take those after question 3, and then we'll go right to question 4 and 5. Question 7 is a bit like 5, and so we're going to actually take 7 along with 5 because they're both about the citizens initiative referendum process, and then we'll get to question 6 and to question 8. So diving right into Pine Tree Power. Sometimes a yes means no and a no means yes. It's pretty straightforward this year. A yes for this question means that you want to create Pine Tree Power, which would be a new entity that would control our power distribution. A no means that you don't want to do that. So how the question reads is, do you want to create a new power company governed by an elected board to acquire and operate existing for-profit electricity transmission and distribution facilities in Maine? So I highlighted that words acquire and operate because what we're talking about is a forced buyout. Yes on 3, if you vote yes, you're voting for the creation of Pine Tree Power, which would force CMP and Versant to sell us their poles, wires, trucks, all of their assets, liquidating their business, and also taking their employees. This will be going to court for a number of years if this does pass. The Pine Tree Power would be run, as it says in the question, by an elected board. 7 people will be elected, and those 7 people that get elected will then appoint 6 others for a 13-person leadership board. We anticipate that the elected people will be campaigning, and so it will probably have people supporting them that have energy desires. The cost estimate, but by the yes on 3 people, is $5 to $6 billion, and the acquisition year is 2025, 2026. Opponents say it's actually closer to 12 billion or 13.5 billion, and the acquisition year is closer to 2032. We'll get into that in a little bit. This does only cover energy delivery. CMP and Versant do not produce your power; they only deliver it, and so that's just one part of your bill. If this passes, Pine Tree Power will be regulated by the Maine Public Utilities Commission, just like CMP and Versant are now. So a no on 3 means CMP and Versant continues to keep their businesses running and everything. They won't lose employees, wires, equipment, or employees, and they'll continue to provide energy delivery for us. About 97% of Mainers are customers of CMP or Versant. They would also continue to be regulated by the Maine PUC. So the Maine PUC already regulates distribution of energy. That's an important thing to know. That's not gonna change. So anything that CMP and Versant make profit wise is directly involved or directly approved by the Maine PUC as it is. Sorry, my hat is crooked. I'm gonna just take that off. Would you continue? They would also continue doing their clean energy investments in regular infrastructure upgrades. So our position, my position, and our chamber's position on this is it's a bad idea, and it's a bad idea for 6 reasons. Number one, we don't know what the cost is. Literally, it is just a guess at this point until it goes through the courts. There's a huge difference between 5 billion and 13.5 billion. To give you some perspective, the state of Maine budget for 2 years is 9.2 billion. Looking at other states, our guess is it'll probably be a takeover year if it passes of 2030 and a cost of around 10 billion. So really what we're doing is we're asking people to vote yes today for something we won't know the cost of for literally years to come. It's only about energy delivery, which is the smallest part of your bill. Energy production is influenced by international markets and how much natural gas costs to power the generators, to power the grid. And so there's a lot of aspects to that. And that's why we think it's not going to have a big effect on what people actually pay. It could have a negative effect. We'll get into that. We are anti-forced buyouts by the government. Just because the government thinks that they can do it better, we don't really want to set the precedent that you should be able to buy out companies and take all their assets. The grid will be run by elected politicians, likely partisan ones. I could see a solar company, a coal company, a nuclear company, all campaigning on behalf of someone on this leadership board, so that their energy type is the one that is most utilized. That doesn't feel great to me. Right now, we have experts in energy that work at CMP and at Versant that are running the grid. It's one of those things where I think we might need experts to run this. There's a third-party vendor that Pine Tree Power is going to hire. The Maine AFL-CIO and IBEW, which is the electric workers unions, are both encouraging a no vote because the third-party vendor is supposed to take on the non-managerial employees of Versant and CMP. But what does that look like for those employees? Is their 401k going to stay the same? Are their benefits going to stay the same? Is their seniority going to stay the same? I mean, there's a lot of things that are up in the air about that, and a lot of uncertainty. And so those unions have said this doesn't feel like a good thing for that uncertainty. And you're going to find a third-party vendor that's going to agree to all this, and there isn't one in the country right now that runs a grid that they don't own the poles and the wires for. So I'm not sure we'll even find one. Lastly, there's a chance that we have less clean energy investment while the ownership's debated in the courts for 5 or 7 or 10 years. And that's because if you don't know who's going to own it at the end of it, are you going to really make the investment to help the system grow? Lastly, on a personal note, there's a part about CMP and Versant, and opponents, are saying, hey, why are they spending so much money to oppose this? And it's like, because you're trying to take away their business. You're trying to take away all their assets. If there was a bill to people to do a government takeover of chambers of commerce, yeah, we would also fight it because they're fighting to keep their companies and keep their employees. I mean, any business would fight that. So I think that's a moot point, and I just wanted to kind of mention that. Question 1 and question 2. Question 1's about borrowing over $1 billion. That you're going to need that voter approval. And no means that you don't want the voter approval for that. So the question reads like this: do you want to bar some quasi-governmental entities and all consumer-owned electric utilities from taking on more than $1 billion in debt unless statewide voter approval? This doesn't affect, obviously, the state. The state, has a budget that they run. They'll get over $1 billion, for different things that they do. But this affects, this could affect some other quasi-governmental agencies. There's a few specifically not mentioned. This was really designed as a fail-safe for question 3. So if Pine Tree Power does pass, but we don't know what the number is going to be, we know it's at least $5 billion. That once the number is figured out, that it'll come back to Maine voters. Certain entities, like I said, like FAME, Finance Authority of Maine, are exempt from this ruling, so they can still continue to do their work without coming to the voters for things. But Pine Tree Power would not. Pine Tree Power would be, named right in this as a consumer owned. That's what the phrase is when you're doing a forced buyout, and the government's going to own it. It's called consumer owned. And this would be part of that. Even if you do like Pine Tree Power, a yes vote on question 1 would allow us to at least, once the number comes through, vote on that again. But for the most part, as this first point says, if you vote no on 3, you're probably going to vote yes on 1. If you vote yes on 3, you're probably going to vote no on 1. Question 2 is campaign contributions to referendums and legislatures. Yes means that some companies won't have a say in Maine politics, and no vote means you don't want to enact this. So it says, do you want to ban foreign governments, entities that they own and control or influence from making campaign contributions or financing communications for or against candidates or ballot questions. That word influence really bothers me. First thing you need to know, this is going to pass. There's no organized opposition to this. There is a lot of organized people that want to pass this. They're calling it foreign influence in our elections. That's a funny phrase to use because to say that a company, an international company that has employees in Maine, since their parent company of their parent company of their parent company is owned by an international thing. It's like, well, yeah, but the people that are on the ground that the main employers work for, they're here in Maine, but since they're owned and then owned and then owned, now these people don't have a say. So, what does influence mean? Own, control, or influence. Does that mean permits? Does that mean retirement stocks? If a foreign government has a 401k that depends on stocks of these businesses, is that influence? I don't know what international government rules are. Maybe in order to export, you do need to allow the government to own a percentage of your company. I don't know, but what I do know is there's 386 international companies in Maine and 38,000 Maine employees that work for international companies. And this feels like if you're international, that you're not going to have a say. Or even if your parent company of your parent company is international, you don't have a say. An example here is Hydro-Quebec when they were trying to do the clean energy corridor and bring clean hydro into Maine. The funding for the opposition for that was a Texas natural gas company and a Florida natural gas company. And they poured millions of dollars into opposing it. And then after it lost at the ballot box, about a month later, it came out what the new prices for natural gas were that were going up. And those companies made a lot more money on natural gas. And so what we're talking about is, hey, we've got a ton of Canadian-based companies. If there's a logging company in Canada that wants to do something in Maine and help employees that they have in Maine, they don't get to have a say in it. But a Montana lumber company that wanted to oppose it could, or anything else. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't love it, but again, it's going to pass. And so we'll see what happens. When it does pass, there's a great chance that it gets challenged. There was a Supreme Court case called Citizens United that gave businesses the right to contribute to campaigns. And this may not be constitutional because you might not be able to say, hey, just because of who you work for, you can't have a say in politics. So there's a high likelihood once this passes that it will get challenged. All right, going a little quickly through these last ones. Question 4, the right to repair. This is about bringing your vehicle to a dealership or an independent garage. And so, do you want to require vehicle manufacturers to standardize onboard diagnostic systems and provide remote access to those systems and mechanical data at independent repair facilities? Yes, on 4 is highly supported compared to its opposition. It's likely to pass. Many people don't like being told they have to go to the dealership for stuff. They like to have the choice of who they can go to, and there's plenty of Maine independent garages that support this, which is another reason I think it'll pass. On the other side, what's this do for genuinely proprietary technology? If you're a company that says, hey, we only want our service people working on our vehicles, especially with this special system that we have in our vehicles, now you're going to have to share all of that knowledge with everybody else. And I don't know if I created technology if I would love that. The other side is if a vehicle manufacturer says, hey, we don't want to abide by this, will they stop selling their vehicles in Maine? Does that limit what vehicles are going to be available? I don't know. I'm just a couple other sides if you wanted to look at the other side of that one. Question 5 and 7 both have to do with citizen referendums. So what you need to know about citizen referendums is that's how 4 of these got on the ballot. And basically you need to get 10% of the people that voted in the last gubernatorial election. That's the number of signatures you need from Maine voters. And so that ends up being anywhere from 65 to 80,000 signatures get submitted, and then they have to get verified by the Secretary of State. So question 5 is say, do you favor giving the Secretary of State's office more time to validate those signatures? 65 to 80,000 signatures is a lot of signatures. So they want to go from 100 days to 100 business days. So that would take out the weekends and give them, another, 2/7 or a third of time in order to do the verification of all these, thousands of signatures. It also has something in here that says if someone submits a petition within 30 days of election, that the Secretary of State office can postpone starting the validation process until they get out of the election time, because elections are busy for the Secretary of State's office. The other related question is about the people that actually collect the signatures. We have something in the Constitution of Maine that says Maine, you have to be a registered voter in Maine in order to be a petition person and not just someone from out of state who came in here. It says here at the end of the question, requirements for this to be a Maine resident have been ruled unconstitutional in federal court. We'll get into that in a second. Let's start with 5. Just like I said, this gives the Secretary of State's office more time to validate the signature to verify that these are Maine voters. It's likely to pass. I think most Mainers are going to say, yeah, if you say you need more time to do this, then so be it. And again, that's a lot of signatures to look at. Question 7, this last part that says requirements that have been ruled unconstitutional in federal court. I really hate this is part of this question. It's a weighted phrase that's trying to put its finger on the scale. I just say ignore that when you go in the booth. Whether you agree or not with this, honestly, if it's coming to us at all, it means the federal court does not have the authority just to put this in place, or they already would have done that. So this is still our choice if we want to have this in our Constitution or not. Also, there's numerous laws that where federal and state laws are not aligned. Marijuana, financial tech, cybersecurity. There's a ton of things that we don't completely align on. So the point is, this is our decision. I don't have any strong feelings or intuition one way or the other. I would just say don't let that last part affect your decision. Just set it on what you think of the question in whole. Question 6, printing all sections of the Maine Constitution. This is a very confusing one, but a yes vote means that you support repealing Article 10, Section 7, which was passed in 1876. And when it passed, that did is it said you don't need to print 3 sections of the Constitution when you print the Constitution. So this says you favor amending the Constitution, require that all the provisions of the Constitution be included in the official printing of the Constitution. So really, what is this all about? So in 1876, 56 years after the original Constitution of Maine was passed, Article 10, sections 1, 2, and 5 were voted by Section 7 to say they no longer need to be printed. 1 and 2 were about the first legislature and how they convened in 1820. I can certainly see why in 1876 they were like, hey, that was a meeting that happened 56 years ago. Why are we printing this? It's just wasting paper. Section 5 is the reason for this question. And so what Section 5 had to do with is the Indian Treaty obligations. And though those rules dictated in that section don't have any effect on today's relationship with the tribes, which are mainly governed by the Maine Indian Claims Act of Claims Settlement of 1980, this section is still part of our history, and thus the Wabanaki Alliance has asked for this to be printed again when we print it. It should be noted, these are still laws. These were not revoked from the Maine Constitution. They just weren't printed when the full Constitution was printed. And so all this would do is get them to be printed again, but they've been laws throughout. The only concern raised to oppose this was if we bring up these old treaty obligations, are people going to get confused with what rules are governing our obligations and our agreements with the Maine Indian tribes? But again, like I said, the governing document for that is the Maine Indian Land Claim Settlement of 1980. So that is that one. And finally, question 8. This is about voting rights of those under mental health guardianship. A yes vote means that you support removing a constitutional provision that says you can't vote for governor, senator, or representative if you're a person that is under guardianship for reasons of mental health. That's what the question says here. Again, this has the same addendum that question 7 has, where it says which United States District Court found violates the U.S. law. Just to repeat, in case you skipped that one, these weighted phrases, please ignore them. I don't believe they should be part of the question because if they're asking us the question at all, it means that we can have our own say of what we want it to say in the Constitution. And again, there are numerous times when federal and state laws do not align: marijuana, financial tech, cybersecurity, and more. My take on this question in particular, it seems to be a lot more nuanced. It's people under guardianship for mental health, is a wide spectrum of what people have, and really feels like something that experts should tackle. I think most Mainers would agree that if a person under guardianship is of sound mind, whether that's through medication therapy or otherwise, that they should be able to vote. However, if someone's going to go, pick up a group of people that are unaware of what their actions are, and they're just being told, hey, you should vote this way. I think we would all agree that's not really, if that person doesn't understand exactly what they're doing, that doesn't feel like that's good. That feels like whoever's bringing to the polls is getting more votes. Whether this passes or not, I think a committee should meet to figure out if this is good. I think most Mainers would be in favor of people of sound mind having the right to vote. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. So whether this passes or not, I hope we get some more nuanced rulemaking around this. And it is interesting to note that a similar amendment was on the ballot in 97 and 2001. And both of those lost. They lost by about 20 points. So it'll be interesting to see how the Maine voter has changed over 20 years. Besides that, thank you for watching this. Feel free to share it with your friends if you think it's helpful. I'm not really interested in debating any of these topics individually. You know, if you feel differently, then that's great. That's why we vote and go to the polls. I'm just trying to give people some perspective, but before they head to the polls, some framework about what these questions are. So the first time they're reading them is not in the booth. To that end, though, we are a Chamber of Commerce. We're trying to make these efficient and effective. If you prefer this was done a different way, we are open for feedback. Just send me an email at Cory@midcoastmaine.com. That's all.